So we got breaking news. The Justice Department has released transcripts of the Ghislaine Maxwell interview. And essentially, if you've been following the story, you'll know Trump and Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, right? Pictured here, I think that's Melania. There's a lot of questions on what is Trump's association to these things. And I also want to make it clear, Trump seems to be trying to distract from this stuff, as on the same day that these transcripts are released, they're ordering an FBI search of John Bolton. It's like, okay. And I didn't see any official charges against Bolton or whatever. So there's that. And if you've been following it also, you'll know many victims of the Epstein thing have come out and said, wow, looks like a cover up. So I just wanted to put this all in context. Trump's trying to distract with, I'm going to throw the FBI at John Bolton the same day that these transcripts come out. And do be aware that many victims in this situation have been saying, hey, this looks like a cover up. However, I do have the transcripts here, and I just want to read through it so you know what it is. Okay, so Todd Blanche, she's like, hey, as you mentioned that early in the very beginning of the conversation, you mentioned President Trump in the you mentioned President Trump in the early 90s. So we're talking about Trump. Clinton is also mentioned here, President Clinton. It says they spent time together on a plane. I don't believe there was ever massage on the plane, so they would have been the only time that I think President Clinton could have ever received a massage, and he didn't, because I was there. So she's saying nothing against Clinton. Then we're asking about Trump, because they're asking her all sorts of stuff. So you mentioned President Trump in the early 90s, Ghislaine Maxwell, yes. What did you observe? As far as President Trump and his relationship with you or Mr. Epstein, she says, well, I just want to say for my relationship with President Trump, relationship's a big word, okay, but I just want to say that I met him, or I believe I may have, because of my father in the 1990s. Todd Blanche, yep, and then here they are pictured, okay, just be aware. So they have met, so we do know that, but we know that already. So my father liked him very much, and he was loved. Really liked his wife as well, because we were both Czechoslovakian. And as far as I'm concerned, President Trump was always very cordial and very kind to me. And I just want to say that I admire his extraordinary achievement in becoming president now, and I like him. And I've always liked him, so that is the sum and substance of my entire relationship with him. Okay? That's what she says. And I know my first reaction is this sounds like a South Park episode. If you've been watching the last South Park episode, episode 3, basically Trump just wants people to give him gold gifts and say that he's awesome. That's basically what it is. So it's kind of a strange thing to say, but that's what she's saying. What about Mr. Epstein's relationship with him? She says, I don't know how they met, and I don't know how they became friends. I certainly saw them together, and I remember the few times I observed them together, but they were friendly. I mean, they seemed friendly. Todd Blanche, what was that in social settings, or was that in private settings? She says, I believe I only ever saw them in social settings. I don't recall any private settings. Todd Blanche asked, have you ever been to Mar-a-Lago in Palm Beach? I have. Okay. And what time period are you thinking about when you say yes? She says, I don't remember when the president purchased Mar-a-Lago. So whenever it turned to a club, I went there, and I loved going there. Okay. Blanche, did you go there alone or with Mr. Epstein? Ghislaine says, mostly alone. Blanche, do you know where? She says, and the times I went there, it was for an event, maybe once or twice. Blanche, and do you know whether Mr. Epstein ever went there? Maxwell says, I believe he did, but again, we really were, he didn't take me with him all the time. So he would go and, he did from the time to time, but he would go alone. I think he would go himself to the spa. I certainly did. Blanche says, did you ever observe President Trump receive a massage? Maxwell, she says, never. Blanche, Did you ever observe, you said that you were, I mean, have you ever seen there's photographs, public photographs of Mr. Epstein and President Trump together? Maxwell says yes. Blanche, and there's photographs of, I think you're in some of the photographs, and it's referring to this kind of stuff, right? Maxwell, yes. Blanche says, as well, those all appear to be social settings. Maxwell, yes. Blanche, do you, and I'm just looking at this stuff. This is kind of leading questions here. But, I mean, I'll let you know, I'm just reading through it. Maxwell, that's my memory. They were social settings. I don't know Epstein's. If he had whatever the nature of President's friendship, if you will, or however you want to define that with Epstein, I was never witnessed. Okay, that's what she says. I think they were friendly like people are in social settings. I don't think they were close friends, or I certainly never witnessed the president in any of. I don't recall ever seeing him in his house, for instance. And I think there's, if you guys out there, I think there's a video out there of Epstein and Trump talking and stuff like that. So we know they've met and things. And for those of you who follow this closely, you know, you're going to be able to point out the stuff. I'm just showing you the new evidence. I actually never saw the president in any type of massage setting. Interesting. So if you understand how they're phrasing this, I never saw him in a massage setting, right? So it's like saying I never went into the room with him. That kind of stuff is how I read that. I never witnessed the president in any appropriate setting in any way. The president was never inappropriate with anybody. Okay, so here she's saying I never saw him in a setting. I never witnessed the president in any appropriate setting. And then she's saying, then she makes a jump. The president was never inappropriate with anybody, but I don't know how she could make that a jump from here to here. In times that I was with him, he was a gentleman in all respects. Because a better way to say it would be say I didn't witness him being appropriate. It would be different than how she worded it here. When's the last time you think you saw in person President Trump? Maxwell, it's been a long time, probably not, sometime in the beginning, mid 2000s maybe, and it would have been in a social setting as far as I recall. Blanche, did you ever hear Mr. Epstein or anybody say that President Trump had done anything inappropriate with masseuses or with anybody in your world? Okay, so this is actually a fairly broad question, but one, they're talking about just masseuses alone, and then they're saying anyone in your world, asking did Trump do anything inappropriate? That's what they're saying. That was the question. So it depends obviously how you ask these kind of questions, and you know you can answer in particular ways. So Ghislaine says absolutely never in any context. Blanche says, do you know whether masseuses from Mar-a-Lago spa ended up giving private massages to Epstein? I'm not asking for what you may have read, but from at the time, from your personal knowledge, do you know whether that's true? Maxwell says, I don't recall. Okay. Is it possible? Yes. But I don't remember. I don't remember that. So I don't recall that, but it's possible. Blanche, do you have any recollection of ever recruiting a masseuse from Mar-a-Lago? Yeah, they keep focusing on just masseuse. I mean, I think you could ask a lot more broader questions, but it's interesting, like they focus on just certain aspects of this, right? So you can kind of see where there's, a limited aspect of what they're talking about. And this, I'll just be clear on this. This thing is like a 200 and some pages. I'm just pulling out some of the things I've been noticing was mentioned in other stories, which I'll show you in a minute here. But this seems highly focused questions though, in terms of limited in scope. I'll leave it. That's a good way to say it. Do you have any recollection of ever recruiting a masseuse from Mar-a-Lago spa to give a private massage to? Let's see, make sure we're good. Okay, yeah. This is in later in page 204, so that was the page 108. So you're going to tell us what you believe, but I want to make sure I understand your basis for belief is a kind of what you read and seen in your knowledge of Epstein for many years. You knew him, right? Okay. And there's actually a third quote, okay, to answer this, yes. And there's a third quote to that, which is having experienced now the mismanagement and inefficiencies of total dereliction of duty at the Bureau of Prisons. And we're talking about what happened to Epstein is what we're talking about. From the BOP, the Bureau of Prisons, yes. Okay, fair. Okay, so I want to, what I want to be careful about is, asking you to speculate because anyone can do that. And I don't think that's fair to you or anybody else to ask to give your opinion. But do you think that the third point you say, which is a kind of failure by the BOP, there's a lot of an OIG report, there's the SDNY investigation about it. So you think he was, he did not die by, right, call it the self-deletion, given all the things we just talked about. Ghislaine Maxwell says, I do not believe he died by, you can see right there, self-deletion thing. Todd says, and do you believe that you have any speculation or view of who killed him? Maxwell says, I no, I don't. And I ask because if you don't believe there's any truth to the allegations of blackmail, he had any kind of list or had reasons for people to hate him, why would somebody kill him in prison? In prison where I am, they will kill you or they will pay you. Somebody can pay a prisoner to kill you for $25 worth of commissary. That's about going rate for a hit with a lock today. So that goes to the third reason, which is kind of mismanagement. Yes. So there's a lot in here. I just wanted to point out just a couple things. So, what she's saying, and always take everything with in the full context with a grain of salt. So don't necessarily say that everything that she says is either truthful or lying. You don't know. That's why you have to corroborate evidence. And anyone who follows this kind of stuff, you would know this. If you want to read through all the stuff, you can. I don't cover the Epstein thing all day, every day on my channel. I know a lot of other channels do. I'll just tell you when there's something, breaking, and I think today was worth mentioning this stuff. And it's all on the website, and you can read through the audio and read through all the transcripts if you like. But the headline's coming out is saying that there's no list, and I literally read you what she said about Trump. So in my opinion, when I just looked at it, it looked like focused questions to me. So there's things you probably could ask her more about. And then also, I think it's clear on the same day that you have this transcript stuff released, then why is Trump suddenly investigating, sending the FBI to go to John Bolton's house, and I don't know whatever charges are. They're probably going for some sort of technicality of like, oh, he has documents he's not supposed to have or something like that. I'm just telling you that. And they also put this in context to where FBI at the moment is lowering their recruitment standards, as we talked about in a prior video. And again, the Epstein victims think there's some sort of cover up. So that's what's going on. Please share your thoughts on this, and I'll catch you next video.